That's Abe. He looks 10 years older because of rage and hate and sociopathy. A podcast that has put a lot of work into these silly openings these last many weeks, believe it or not, and is this week content to simply announce that the unlikely recovery of a very nearly lost, most excellent hoodie sweatshirt is a really wonderful, invaluable occurrence. That's it. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing, Lori?
I'm good. Are we going to talk about your sweatshirt, or was that it?
Yeah, for a second. Tonight is Monday, October the 10th, 2022. Stepmother's birthday. Happy birthday, Moose, if you're out there.
It's Columbus Day also.
And
Abe,
Julia's anniversary.
How dare you even speak that name on this podcast? Obviously, we don't want to get into the culture war stuff, as one of our biggest fans is just written us up in a public forum for our sloppy and low effort attempts at generating controversy by stirring up the culture war pot. So obviously we don't want to go into that. But Columbus Day, I saw it referred to today, I think by Camille Foster on Twitter. He referred to today as a culture war day. Which is actually
subversive.
Exactly correct, because you have on the one hand people who are like Tom Cotton is one that comes to mind right away, who like sort of trollingly tweeted a happy Columbus Day to everyone, because now that's something that you can do to piss off the right people on the left if you are a person of the right. It's become a stupid front in the culture war. I mean, this has been this for years, but it's now like the battle lines have been established, because it's if you wish someone Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, which is I think now the official title of it, right?
I think so.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
I think so. I thought it was both.
Maybe it's both. I don't know.
I had the day off. According to all the literature I receive at my work, it's Columbus Day. Like, that's the day, right? That's what's on the
both.
books.
Is it both? I think that you should take great offense at the Columbus Day verbiage in your emails and try to get like another day off out of it. You've endured harm in a meaningful way, and you're going to need some time to yourself.
You're
to
doing
think about it.
You're doing this thing that you said you wouldn't do.
I think that's the only solution. 2 separate days that I get to take off, because I wouldn't want to take 2 separate days off on the same day. Didn't make any sense.
But then the problem is that you're still honoring Columbus if you give him a day.
Right. That's true.
I think it makes sense to have them on the same day. So I think this works. It's Columbus
The concept
Day.
of
Sorry? Like,
indigenous.
I think that is good.
I reject the concept of indigenous out of hand. I was reading a thing in, I don't remember where I saw it, but some academics out of China, I think, have used supercomputers to predict, because, like 300 million years ago or whatever, there was no North America, South America, and Europe and Africa and all the rest.
Yeah.
There's, throughout all of, apparently roughly every 600 million years or so, there's a great rearrangement of the continents, right? So we've had this arrangement for the totality of human history, for the most part, right? But it's not the case that our arrangement of continents will always be this way. And the predictions from this bunch of academics, I'll try to find the article to link in the show notes. Don't forget to go to brainiron.com. That's the only place where you can see my very important Photoshops that I do at the top of every episode, which this past week, what I should do is I should quiz Abe and just present him with past Photoshops and say,
See if he can guess the show.
No, because as we exposed last week, Abe remembers
Explode.
nothing of previous episodes when we talked about the fancy peanuts. And he had no memory of it,
Yeah.
despite it featuring prominently at the top of the show, much like this.
Yeah.
So
I'm writing it down.
I'm going to give Abe. You're like one of those assholes in a debate. He's taking notes during the televised debate, and it just says like, "Oh, poop." It doesn't actually mean anything. It just says, "Romney's an asshole." That's what Obama just wrote down when he was taking notes during the debate.
It's not that, but it's not far off from that.
Right. Anyway, so I should just give Abe previous episode titles and pictures and be like, is this an episode of our podcast?
Yeah.
Or not?
I think it would be fair if you did it only like 4 episodes and older, because I like to
Right,
delay
still
my
trying to catch up.
listening. Yeah.
What were we talking about? Why am I talking about this?
Oh, I don't want to tell you because
No, tell me. You got to tell me. It's not fair.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
No, after that. We were past Indigenous people.
Oh, you go into the website.
continents thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's what I
the
wanted
prediction
to not
by
get back to.
these supercomputers is that the next edition of the arrangement of the continents on Earth will involve the closing of the Pacific Ocean, in which because the Pacific Ocean right now apparently shrinks by an inch a year, something along those
Really?
lines.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that.
So despite alleged climate change,
Yeah, we can't.
like raising all of the sea
gonna
levels or
melt.
what have you. I guess that applies to the Atlantic Ocean and other oceans, or maybe I just misunderstand what it means when it rising sea levels, but also the shrinking of the Pacific Ocean. As Abe is wont to say, Abe is not a blank, like whatever it is that we're talking about, unless it's like a mid-level
It's not a
manager.
geologist.
A mid-level manager for the Internal Revenue Service. Abe is notably not that. But I'm not any of those things either. And so I cannot square in my head rising sea levels and also the closing of the Pacific Ocean,
Right.
which is the largest ocean on the planet.
Is there
For
some
now.
other ocean that's taking up?
The Indian
The
Ocean,
slack?
the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is probably what's gonna. It'll just push anyway. Will you finish your thought?
Anyway, so the continents are closing, and there's going to be an Amerasia or Asia America or something that they decided to name it some 300 million years from now. That
So
was interesting.
it's going to close enough to touch.
Yeah, it's like just the
Oh, look at that.
it's us and the Chinese, and I
To
assume
touch? What other way?
I don't know what's going to happen to
Emotionally?
Japan in this scenario. Like
Yeah,
if
what
there's no
happens-
more Pacific Ocean,
No,
what
there's
happens
no
to
Japan.
Japan.
Japan's underground. There might be a little top of that mountain.
And we'll get into a little bit of this existential dread and doom for all of humanity later on when we talk about William Shatner in space. But there's something about reading an article about the Pacific Ocean just going away and all of North America colliding with, in a very sort of slow and not
Right.
dramatic way, but like on the very long run of Earth life, which in the grand scheme of things is like nothing.
Yeah.
The further out that you go, right? That 300 million years from now is what would that represent out of Earth's entire life? Because Earth is what, 6 billion years old or something like that, right? So it's not an insignificant chunk, but it's like the toddlerhood of Earth or something is 300 million years.
Do those fancy computers predict whether we will be around, the humans? 'Cause
I mean, there's no
can't-
way that humans
Right,
are going to
right.
300 million
Either
years.
we go extinct or we go to a better planet, maybe. 300 million years is a long time from now.
Very long time. Nothing that we need to be concerned about,
Right.
obviously.
Not yet.
Will we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day on the new planet?
What will it even? Well, but what is in the context of like continent drift? What is an indigenous people? is
Okay, I
sort of
think
my
what
whole
they're
point.
referring to are the races of people that we just murdered. Just there used to be a whole
I've-
bunch of people,
I've
and then
explored
they
the
all
concept
died because of murder.
indigenousness at some great length on the blog before. I'll make sure, 'cause it's a great blog. The title of the blog is great, and then the content of the blog is Whoopsie Boom. How can you not love a blog whose title is Whoopsie Boom? Great blog. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. Anyway, what were we going to talk about? Oh yeah, my sweatshirt.
Yes.
This is what the people come for. Sweatshirt talk. I had a good hoodie, Georgia Bulldogs hoodie. And I brought it with me because it was a chilly day on Saturday to the kids' baseball game. Great win for the good guys. 13-3 if you count the unallowed 7th run in the last inning. Because you're supposed to max out at 6 runs. But our last hit produced a 7th run. It's like, did it cross the plate or didn't it? When exactly does the mercy rule go into effect? Not clear. Either way, big win for the good guys. Calvin pitched 2 scoreless innings and caught a further 2 good innings. Good win. But I left my beloved University of Georgia Bulldogs hoodie sweatshirt just hanging on a fence post.
Bob doesn't lose things very much.
I don't lose things, and I certainly don't lose hoodies. I've never lost a hoodie, to my knowledge. I still have the hoodie that I got going into high school, like the summer after 8th grade. I still have that hoodie in my closet.
So this is a absent-minded thing? You're just so engrossed in the game that you forgot that you...
We were at like minute 10 of the third quarter of the Auburn game.
We're leaving this.
We needed to go home
this Little
to
League
watch football.
Baseball game at 5:35 on Saturday evening with the Georgia game. According to our phones, like having watched the highlights now, it wasn't particularly close in the first half. Like we haven't watched the whole first. Like
I only had the game cast. Bob was coaching. I have a clipboard during the game with the lineup on it to get kids ready. And then clipped onto it was my phone with the game cast.
Nice.
So that I could pay attention to both
But
things.
it was only like, what were we up? 14?
I think it was 14-0 or 14-3 at that point.
Yeah, but the first quarter was scoreless. Like the only updates that I'm getting are that this is a close game, right? And this was a game that was supposed to have a lot of points in it, and they didn't score for like the first 20 minutes. So anyway, I'm just trying to get the fuck out of there so we can go home and watch the football game. Left the hoodie there. Didn't even think about it again until it was time to walk the kids to school on Monday morning. And I'm looking around trying to find the hoodie. Not in the closet, not hanging off any of the kitchen or dining room chairs where it might otherwise be, not draped across the back of the couch. If I was being lazy, that's where it would be. It was nowhere. Panic set in.
It's the worst. It's the worst when you can't find a thing you love.
I immediately conceived of a narrative in my head that put the blame squarely on someone else, which is naturally what I should do. Because conveniently, as we were leaving the car to go up to the baseball field, Lori asked for my keys. So I handed Lori
Why did I ask for the keys? In case I had to dart across town in the car to get catcher's gear.
To get catcher's gear.
Okay.
But she didn't need to, as it turns out. We had catcher's gear at this visiting field that
it immediately became my fault. Right. And I felt he didn't have to say a word to me. I felt guilty. I knew somehow this was my fault.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying it was your fault, but there's no way.
No, but I read your mind. It would
have been physically impossible for me to have left the sweatshirt behind if I had simply had the keys in my pocket, and they would have been in the sweatshirt pocket. Right. Because I would have needed the keys to get in the car to drive home, Abe. I see you with your skeptical eyes there,
Okay, I wasn't
but
there.
It's true.
I do have a question. Was this so? You didn't feel naked? Like I feel chilly because I'm not without the thing.
Excited.
No, look. I know it's just to you. It's just a child's game, right? But I am the coach.
Bob's whole
I'm the
life.
manager of this team, and I was already wearing like what are those?
Long sleeve t-shirts?
A long sleeved undershirt with a t-shirt over it. And it was sunny.
Yeah.
Like, it was a sunny day, so I'm moving
cold.
around.
Bob was excited.
Yeah,
but the excitement
I get
kept you warm.
amped at these games.
Yeah.
Then, you know, so I took the sweater off. And
Anyway,
I go back. I drop the kids off at school. I get in the car because if you think about it, this is a city facility. So the chances that like some maintenance worker or what have you came by on Sunday, very slim. And as far as I know, this Little League doesn't have Sunday games like our Little League does, but we were playing another division's Little League. They don't have Sunday games. So I was fairly confident that the field had been abandoned since we were there on Saturday evening.
And this is not like a high-value product. Like, it has sentimental value, but it's not like you left some fancy AirPods or whatever.
It is just a hoodie.
Right. Yeah. It's just a gray sweatshirt.
Not to besmirch your hoodie, but, you know, it's not like,
it's a great Georgia. I mean, come on. I don't have it with me. I'd show you, but it's a great Georgia Bulldogs.
It's great,
sweatshirt.
but we live in a place where people are not Georgia fans
Okay.
in general.
That's
so
true.
it's.
Right. I mean,
not
if I
that
had
they
lost it,
wouldn't-
I would have. If someone else had claimed it, and that's the sort of thing. Like, I can't explain why I had a soft spot for the University of Michigan Wolverines growing up, except that inexplicably I was the proud owner of a T-shirt that had Michigan Wolverines shit all over it. Like
Right.
some aunt or step uncle or something had given it to me, I guess, when I was like 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I wore it for years. And so whenever we'd be watching Michigan, Ohio State, which was one of like the 3 college football games we would watch every year, I would be like die hard for Michigan just because I had inexplicably had this T-shirt. So like as I'm driving over there, I'm like, okay, so worst case scenario,
Yeah, someone's a Georgia fan.
I
now.
can tell myself the story that maybe the coach's kid who was there, because the coach of the other team had an older kid, maybe he saw it and grabbed it and he put it on, and now he's like, now I'm Georgia Bulldog curious,
Yeah.
is what I am. And like, he finds a real team to root for, not these stupid Virginia Cavaliers.
No one roots for this team.
Or Virginia
Don't
Tech.
act like it.
A lot of Virginia Tech people around here too. So that was like, I'm building this whole stupid story in my head about this kid who's like, dreams of becoming a Georgia Bulldog
That's
now
right.
because he stole my sweatshirt, the
Yeah.
bastard. But
He didn't mean to steal
he
it.
didn't mean to steal it, but like
Because when
he
you
ended
take
up with it.
sweatshirts,
Right.
you
Also,
take
this
them
is
thinking
entirely
you're doing
imaginary
something nice.
Because I got to the field and there was my sweatshirt covered in a pleasant morning dew and a frost, really. It was quite chilly this morning, hanging on the fence post exactly where I'd left it.
Oh, nice. At least you remember that much.
Yeah, it felt good,
No,
too.
Bob hardly ever loses things, and when he does, it's my fault, obviously.
Right.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Any thrilling anecdotes about your weekend, Abe?
No. A bunch of people were in town, and so we recorded the other podcast that I'm on, and we just hung out the rest of the day. It's pretty good.
I haven't heard a new Biffler in a while. I'm
No,
excited.
I think it's going on a month now.
Preview it for me. Good episode or great episode?
It was a long episode.
Good. It's what I always hope for, especially at the start of like basketball season, is for really long episodes of the Biffler. All right, I got one more bullshit start here before we move on to wacky articles or whatever it is that we are supposed to do around here.
What?
Abe, I want you to imagine a carton of eggs in the refrigerator.
Describe for him.
Oh, right.
How big of a carton?
All right, so this is it's a dozen and a half eggs, so 18 eggs
Right.
in an arrangement of
3x6.
3 by 6. Yes, correct. I'm impressed that you knew right away how these eggs were arranged.
Not just one row of 18 eggs.
That's
So
not,
this is very stupid.
not a yardstick of eggs.
This is a stupid aside, and I guess it just explains how my simple mind works. The "Don't Worry, Darling" movie, which was like this, it was set in like this made-up virtual reality thing. One of the
Right.
clues that the main actress, the wife, figured out that there's something wrong was that she would look at the eggs, and this was like a regular like dozen eggs carton, and she just crushed them, and none of them were actual real eggs, and then. A week after watching that movie, I would look at the eggs while I'm shopping, and I'm like you can just tell by the heft. She didn't need to.
Okay, interesting. You can tell. Yes, you can tell
Yeah.
that there are eggs in there,
Right.
By the
So you can
heft
tell,
of the
yeah.
of the eggs.
All right, so
yes.
eggs, obviously, they come in all sorts of containers. They could be in clear plastic. Often you see them in so that you don't have to be the crazy grocery store person who's like lifting the eggs out of the carton to see whether or not they're cracked before you buy them.
Right.
The eggs that we buy, as it happens, come in like crushed paper, like cardboard, effectively.
The opaque, old-fashioned egg
Right.
carton.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned, can't see through it egg carton, okay? And it holds 18 eggs at a time in the 3 by 6 arrangement, as you suggested. Here's my question for you,
Right.
Abe. As you're...
Wait. The egg carton is always in the refrigerator in the same arrangement.
Okay.
Right.
Okay?
So
It doesn't move
it's
around.
in there, not horizontally, but it's
Yes.
in there vertically.
When you're looking at it, you see the 3 eggs across.
Right. It goes front to back.
Gotcha.
3. Right.
Gotcha.
So and it's fairly reliable in terms of placing the carton of eggs back in the same spot in the fridge every single time. All right. So here's the question. When you get a carton of eggs out of the refrigerator and you place it upon the counter, and you're going to remove some number of eggs from the carton. Okay?
Yeah.
Abe is an agent of chaos, by the way. This isn't fair.
You're going to remove some number of eggs. Let's say it's either 3 or 5, generally speaking. Sometimes,
maybe 2.
Sometimes 2. Often I just get 2 eggs out.
Right.
By the way, this only even comes up because I've recently switched away from for like the last 6 months or so, I guess, was my...
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer.
I think like a year.
Maybe a year I've been going with a Greek yogurt with fruit, usually at least a banana, sometimes some strawberries or other berries in there.
I can't believe we're talking about
this. This is very important stuff. I mean, look, we can't get into culture war stuff. Corey said, so we're talking breakfast.
I like it.
We are nothing if not just a bad zoo morning crew from the 90s. Just desperately trying to fill time in each 6-minute segment until we can run the fucking traffic and weather again.
There's an audience for it.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, gotten away from for like a year because I read some fucking thing in some fucking science magazine article about how eggs will kill you this year. Like they decided eggs were bad again, and I'd been eating nothing but eggs for breakfast for a while.
They alternate on good versus bad. Where are we?
If you just stay away, you're going to be just like, don't read about eggs.
Yeah, probably
ever.
Best not to read about eggs.
Or coffee. Don't read about eggs or coffee, and you're fine.
But I was due for a change. I've been eating eggs for years in the morning. I was like, okay, we're gonna try something else. And I've been reading a lot about gut health. You know, like the microbiome and that. And I don't eat much yogurt, so I was like, I'll get some of that Greek yogurt, and it'll fix my gut health. And the eggs won't spike my cholesterol. I won't get heart disease. I could go to the doctor. I could go see all these different people too. But otherwise, I could just mess with my breakfast routine and assume that I'm going to live forever.
All right.
Anyway, so I went to yogurt plus fruit plus some sort of crunch, maybe a little granola, maybe a little like Crispix or Chex Mix or something, cereal thrown on top there just to give it some texture. And I was finding, especially because with my 5:30 a.m. wake up, so it's 5:30 wake up, I exercise, maybe do a protein shake, and then have the yogurt parfait thing for breakfast. I was getting to like 10:30 in the morning, like fucking starving. And I'm not even a person who usually eats much for lunch. But like the exercise plus the weak-ass yogurt breakfast was leaving me like famished at 10:30. And it was defeating the whole purpose of trying to be healthy. Because it's like 10 fucking 30, I'm having another meal already.
You're allowed to eat and be healthy.
Yeah, I know, but not in my head.
You're so bad at this.
So I said, all right, I'm done with the yogurt. We're going back to eggs.
Yes.
So I started eating eggs again. I've thrown in a bunch of...
I've been eating 3 eggs for breakfast and a piece of toast every day for fucking 100 years now. I don't know how long it's been.
But
I'm not guaranteed lunch at my job.
Yeah.
So if I eat 3 eggs and a slice of toast, I won't die. Like I can actually go from 8:30 eating eggs until 8:30 at night eating dinner. I'm cranky, but I'm not dead.
Okay.
The point is, I needed eggs back in the diet, back in rotation. I've been eating them with a lot of spinach, doing a little wrap. It's delicious. Highly recommend. This is how we got here to the egg carton situation. Imagine a carton of 18 eggs on the counter there. You're going to remove 2 to 3 to 5 eggs from the carton at any given time. How do you choose which eggs to remove from the carton, and does it matter? Why? Explain yourself.
So, this is very nonsensical. Like, there's really no rhyme or reason, but I always do nearest. So the first time, if it's just a full batch of eggs, I always start with the nearest, however you arrange it, and then I go furthest, and then I end up in the middle. And I don't think it's the right way, but I've always just done it that way.
Okay, but you're acknowledging there is a right way.
Right, because, I mean... I'm excluding from the right options my option, the thing that I do. No, so I don't know if there is a right way, but I know what I'm doing is probably not the right approach. I like that you have a method. Right.
I'm surprised that you're not just
why do you
blindly-
doubt your method? This is interesting. Why do you assume that you're doing it wrong when your method certainly must be as valid as any other method, right?
It's not. That's
Because
not
I
how
think
that
there were
works.
I don't know. I just remember being someone's home. I don't know why I don't know. I was going for their eggs, and they had it like very backloaded. Like they would just take from the front at all times. Right. And then I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't like this, right? So like,
fair, Abe, you are onto something.
It's not like you need to have a little balance, So like, if you have it all on the back, then
it's my man right here. That's
okay,
Abe.
Okay.
Demanding balance.
Okay. So why did we start talking about this in the first place?
All right. So here's what I do. If I'm
No. Can a woman have a perspective for once?
Yeah, sure, go for it. You asked me a question. I was responding to the question.
Okay. So I've been eating eggs for fucking ever, and in doing so, noticed after every day taking the carton
You're
of
gonna
eggs.
claim some level of expertise here.
I'm not claiming expertise.
As though I haven't been taking the eggs out of the fridge every day.
Merely speaking from my own perspective.
All right.
Is that okay?
It sure sounds like you're trying to couch this in terms of a
I'm
position of authority.
I'm just speaking from my own perspective.
Yeah.
So.
Fucking Miss Indigenous over here with the eggs.
Yeah. In this time of anti-Semitism. Yeah. So every day, and I noticed, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll go left to right, front to back. What I noticed is that when I'm reaching into the refrigerator to pick up the eggs, the most secure way for me and my weak wrists from years of labor, if I have the weight as far front as I can, it's just the least way I'm going to drop them. I'm afraid I'm going to drop the carton of eggs. The more weight I have in my hand, I know what I'm holding. I'm not going to overcorrect like this person you said took them front to back. Yep. That's insanity. You're asking me to drop. Like I think I got it. And I don't.
Like that person obviously is wrong. You never want to pick something up from one end and find out that all of the weight is in the other end. That's begging for a mess.
That's the most wrong. Right. That's the most wrong. So then by that logic, the most right is to have the weight in your hand.
Right. So
that's how I did it
clear,
for years.
I'm trying to paint a picture in the listeners' minds here. Lori's working back to front so that all of the last 3 eggs are in the front row, right? And the whole rest of it is empty. So that's Lori's method. Yeah. My method is to go, it looks probably to the casual observer chaotic and random. Okay. Right? Like if you're just looking at it, you're like, what the fuck is what psychopath has been taking eggs out of this container this week? But what you're really seeing there is a perfect balancing act.
How do you know it's perfectly balanced? Do you know how much each of the eggs weigh?
It is reasonably well balanced.
Okay, there's a difference.
As best as can be done just by removing 1 or 2 eggs at a time, so that the load remains balanced at every single point of that egg carton's life in the refrigerator, whether it's completely full or there have been 2 eggs removed or 12 eggs removed. Right. The weight will be evenly distributed throughout the carton, so that when you go pick it up, you're always picking up something that has an evenly distributed amount of weight in all corners, basically.
And how does it look? So when you start,
it doesn't matter how it looks. Doesn't matter.
So there might be one. So if it's a full carton of 18, I might take 2 from the middle, or I might take 1 from the front row and 1 from the back row. Okay. But I will always maintain that level of the integrity of the balance is still happening. Okay. Right?
More of the weight is in the back than not.
No, it's an evenly distributed load.
Okay. So when I pick it up, because my weak wrists, and this is hard because you people can't see me, the hardest way for me to pick something up is what I would say, like if you're serving a plate to someone, how you have to hold the plate. Right. That's where I'm really weak.
What this exposes, and I want to be as hyperbolic as possible about this actually exposes a fundamental difference in the way that Lori and I see the entire world.
Oh, yeah?
Which is that Lori believes that it's important to take the eggs out of the carton so that it best
So
reflects...
that I don't drop them on the floor.
So that it best reflects her individual personal experience of daily going into the fridge and getting the carton of eggs out, right? In order to avoid catastrophe with regard to the eggs.
Right.
My system is a much more universal system. It allows for an unthinkable number of variables across time and space.
I would love
such that some stranger, some weirdo walks into our house. They've probably murdered us all. They drowned the dog in the bathtub. They've taken a hammer to us in our sleep.
And then they
now
go for the eggs?
They've worked up an appetite.
Yeah, they're like Abe, just going through people's eggs.
Yeah, and now they're headed to the fridge. They've washed up appropriately in the sink, because they've got all the blood and gore on them.
Maybe they're going to make an omelet from us. Ooh.
Yeah, maybe they're going to use us in their ham and cheese. But they can reach into my refrigerator and reliably grab that carton of eggs, knowing that no matter how they grab it, this person who does not live in our house, who's not familiar with our customs, they can grab that carton of eggs and know that it is going to be an evenly distributed load with no danger of anything tipping over.
If you were packing a moving truck or like an airplane or loading something, would you say you have 10-pound boxes? Do you evenly place them on the bed of the U-Haul, or do you stack them up more towards like the cab of the U-Haul?
I'm not taking this carton of eggs out onto the goddamn highway and driving it around.
I know that.
Everywhere.
I didn't say you were. I'm suggesting that maybe something being evenly weighted is not the best way to do something.
Yes, in some cases, but
Okay.
not when it comes
So this
to a
is one of
carton
the
of
cases.
eggs in the refrigerator.
All right.
An evenly distributed load is the ideal scenario
For what?
someone walking in and not knowing the system, right?
So I'm going to put my suitcase, I'm going to evenly pack it. I'm not going to put all the weight at the bottom of the suitcase so that it stands up nice. I'm going to put it even.
I think that you should pack a suitcase evenly because you don't know how it's going to be
very
carried.
Wrong.
It might not be rolled. That might have to be carried by someone, and you don't want to.
You pick it up.
If you pick it up and all the weight is on one end, that sucks ass.
Yeah, it's like a dead body at that point.
It's like a dead human body.
No, because a smart person would pick it up from the light end.
Anyway, Abe, can we get a verdict here? What's the correct way?
I have no opinion
Take
on
no
this.
position? The fucking UN here. What a piece of shit.
No. Abe, I don't personally need you. Like, I don't care.
Right. Also,
I am comfortable with being concerned more about the egg carton that I hold than every egg carton that has ever or will ever existed.
My concern is the platonic egg carton. And
yes, but we live in real fucking life.
That is not Lori's concern.
Also, I'm an audience of one, so I know I got a bad memory, but my system worked for me. I can't speak for how other people do it. I just want the most accurate information when I left it. I don't want it to be front heavy or back heavy. Just
how you know that we'll never gain any modicum of popularity is that there are assholes on Twitter who could turn this into an engagement machine that would have like days worth of content with hundreds of millions of impressions and hundreds of thousands of votes in every direction. In a Twitter type poll
over a carton of eggs, you have a very high opinion
Guaranteed.
of people online.
There are people who built entire online followings by like talking about bath towels in the exact right way to talk about bath towels.
If we went with that, then I'd have.
Fortunately, that's not what we're after here.
Although it would be interesting to see what the people think.
Yeah. All right, let's do This Week in Sports. If you don't like to hear us talk about sports, I don't blame you. But there's a handy-dandy feature that I include in every episode, which is the rundown of the show, where it says exactly where we start talking about a topic and then where we stop talking about a topic. But my assumption is that if you're here, you just are tolerant of us talking about whatever the fuck it is we're going to talk about. So... but if not, go to the show note and jump around a bit as you see fit. I was trying to come up with a like a segment name for this to make the Chris Howards of the world happy. Like
He doesn't listen. Why would you make him happy?
Right, I know he doesn't listen, but
people of his ilk, his taste.
My fantasy team this year is called Cast Iron Balls, so we can't go with that.
Yeah, you can. That's ridiculous. Of course you can.
Yeah, I guess we could call it that, but
you plagiarize yourself all the time.
It's true. First of all, we should probably discuss very quickly the New York Mets, who have been washed out of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Padres beat them 2 out of 3 in the wild card round, and the Padres will now go play the Dodgers in the divisional round, and the Phillies will play the Braves in the National League divisional round. And so that's the National League playoff picture. It is both obviously hilarious to me that the Mets are out of the playoffs already. And also it's like entirely unacceptable. Like just it's utterly unconscionable that a team that won 101 games and tied for the division win but lost on a tiebreaker because they lost one more game against us than we did against them had to go play a 3-game series and then got bounced. That's rough.
Now, in the old way, the old format, would the Mets be in the playoffs at all? Or is this best of 3 an improvement over where they would stand?
It's an improvement over the interim system, which included like a 1-game wild card playoff.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Garbage system.
Yeah.
But it's not an improvement over the old, like when they just had the wild card and they would have the divisional round where you would have the number 1 seed play the wild card and then the 2 and the 3 seeds were just the other 2 division winners.
Right.
But that was at least a 5-game series. Like a 5-game series isn't ideal, but at least it's a series. You know? And like so in the old system it would have been just 4 teams out of the National League. So it would have been the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Cardinals would have been the 3 division winners, and then the Mets would have gotten the wild card with the tiebreaker going to the Braves there, and that would have sucked to an extent because the Mets would have had 101 wins and then have to go play the Dodgers while the Braves get the relatively easy job of facing the 87 or whatever win Cardinals.
Right.
But you get something for winning your division,
Yeah.
And it's too bad for the Dodgers in that case as well, who won the most games and now have to play probably the second best or third best team in baseball. But at least it's a series. It's a 5-game series, and it's not this bogus 3-game nonsense. And it's the Mets, so it's really funny. Max Scherzer got paid $43 million this year to be a Met, and will get paid $43 million again in each of the next 2 years, and gave up like 6 or 7 runs and a whole bunch of taters the other day. So, just in terms of a longtime hater of the New York Mets, it was fun to see. But it's not fair, certainly. As long as we're talking about New York sports. Did you watch the Giants game?
I did.
Sunday morning?
Even though I know they do this London series, but it always comes to me as a surprise because I don't tune into TV stuff until the noon hour. And I was like, oh, what's this? This game is almost over. Like, I'm just trying to see like who's injured and who's not, and the game was already on. Right. But it was fun. I mean, I didn't miss much because it looked like the Giants were eating shit at the beginning, but I watched
Giants
the important
ate
parts.
shit in the beginning, and then the Packers ate shit the entire second half. Didn't score at all.
Yeah.
Here's a question, because it was right at the end of the game, and I started texting the people that I knew were definitely watching. I think I texted Brian and Jerry and maybe somebody else. I said something like, this game, the Giants game, is currently being catastrophically mismanaged here at the end. And the occurrence was that the Giants had shockingly taken the lead after not being very good. They took the lead in the fourth quarter. They were up by a touchdown now. And the Packers go driving down the length of the field. We're under 2 minutes. They get to 4th and goal, and they fail to score.
Turnover on downs. Yep.
Turnover on downs. Consecutive on 3rd down, the Giants, somebody on the line. I mean, you could say that they batted the pass, but in reality, Aaron Rodgers just chucked it right into a guy's face. So bounced off his helmet.
Every time
he
that happens,
it with his face.
I'm always surprised why it didn't happen more often. Because when they do the slow-mo, and these gigantic men are just like flailing their arms around, and then sometimes it'll hit one of their arms or their helmet. And I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often. It happened a lot to Rodgers at the end.
Ball goes like 15 feet in the air, and like 3 Giants converge on it and just can't quite make the interception before it bounces on the ground. That was 3rd down. Then on 4th down, it was another batted ball. And It wasn't a great looking play anyway. There's this tendency in the last, I don't know how long it's been going on, but the garbage, like, corner of the end zone 50-50 ball at the moment of greatest desperation is such a go-to for these assholes. Like, how is it that you get down to the 5-yard line and the whole play, like, you don't have just a whole other playbook that you can go to to get the ball in the goddamn end zone? Like, you should have 30 plays that are 2-yard or 5-yard plays, and instead they constantly sort of defer to this garbage 50-50 ball to their best wide receiver.
But maybe 50-50 is an improvement over. There's a lot, because everybody's just bunched up. There's a lot of traffic, so you can't even like anticipate where the empty spaces will be. And so they're like, oh, this relatively tall guy is faced off against this relatively short guy.
Are you saying it might be more complicated than Bob is making it?
Yeah, sure. I'm not saying it's easy, but
You're kind of saying it's easy.
Georgia does it constantly where they're just like, okay, so the play is for Brock Bowers to go into the corner of the end zone, and because he's big, then we're going to put the ball in a place where only he can catch it. Yes. But it's a very low probability. Like 50-50 is pushing it, because it's really 50-50 between the two guys there, but the ball also has to be in the exact right place on top
but
of that.
You can at least control somewhat for that with these great quarterbacks, but also there is a less of a risk of a turnover, right? Like if you throw it in a bunch of traffic, like what if somebody tips it and then now you're out of...
I just don't like it. It's not It's not a pretty football play.
Right.
Like it's just not enjoyable to watch. I don't care for it. Whatever. Yeah. The point is that Rodgers tried to throw it into the corner, and it didn't work because the ball got batted anyway. So 4th down, turnover on downs. Giants take over. Less than 2 minutes, but the Packers still have 2 timeouts, right?
Right.
So it's not one of those scenarios where you can just kneel and the clock will go away and the game is over.
Right.
This was a situation where you needed to bleed some time off the clock, or they're going to get the ball back, and you're on your own fucking 5-yard line, right? So you're backed up against the end zone. Not an ideal situation. And the Giants on 1st down took a knee. And like my blood pressure went from, oh, this is awesome. The Giants just won this fucking game again. These bum ass Giants are going to go to 4-1. They went to London and beat the hated Packers and this dirtbag Aaron Rodgers guy. It feels good. And then all of a sudden I'm like standing up like, what is happening?
Yeah.
You can't take a knee right here. What are you doing?
Wasn't there also a clock issue at the game? Like there was some sort of...
Right, so the clock was being stupid on top of that. Like they were having trouble making the game clock and the...
It's metric over there. It's a whole thing.
Play clock work together. It didn't make any sense. Everybody's freaking out. Nobody knows how much time is actually left. But what you know for sure is that the Packers keep stopping the fucking clock.
Yeah.
Because the Giants keep taking a knee. So on 1st down, they just take a knee like right away.
Yes.
And I'm like... Immediately, I'm apoplectic. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? You have Saquon Barkley. You have a number of other fullbacks and large tight ends and running backs. You have Daniel Jones. Like in my mind, there the play is not to take a knee, knowing that you need to bleed, because every 5 seconds that you can bleed off that game clock is enormous.
Yes,
you do not want Aaron Rodgers of all fucking people to get the ball back with time to make even 2 plays.
Right,
because if he's got time for 2 plays, anything can fucking happen.
Yeah, if he can heave it into the end zone, who knows what happens. It's happened to the Giants, I think. It happened to a couple of teams where he just throws it and then somebody somehow catches it and then you lose.
Yes, it has happened to the Giants before. So I'm positive that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I think that the correct play, and this is where I want you to tell me that I'm wrong here, is to either run Jones out on a bootleg with a couple tight ends and a running back or a fullback as his blocker, just to eat up some clock,
right,
and then slide, right? So he's got the entire other side of the field there because they're on one hash mark.
Right.
You just run as far as you can toward the sideline and then slide with a few, or if anybody's getting close to you, you fucking go into the slide right away.
Right.
And at least it's taken another second or 2 off the clock,
right,
as opposed to just taking a knee, right? And so I'm freaking out. And then they go to 2nd down. And he snaps it, and he just fucking stands there. And the line is just standing there. And it's like, okay, is he going to take a knee? Is he not going to take a knee? Now he's risking some asshole from the defensive line just shooting across and punching the ball out of his hand.
Right.
And like, Look, you're doing the thing where you're trying not to fumble, but you're just inviting fucking catastrophe right now.
But
and then he takes a knee, and the Packers bang another timeout.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck is happening?
So you were concerned about that play because it seemed like as soon as there was anyone that broke through, his knee would have been down. Like basically, he was very aware. I mean, it seemed like a kind of a shitty move to do. Like that whole quarterback kneel thing is set up for safety. Like, okay, let's not have some defensive lineman come in too harsh. He's going down, and then they try to kill additional seconds by doing that.
Right. It's poor form to stand there and be like, am I taking a knee or am I not taking a knee?
Right.
Because, of course, if he takes the knee and then some idiot comes flying in and hits him in the head, then it's 15 yards the other way, and it's a free first down, and the game is over.
Game is over. Right.
Like what happened in the Tampa game.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, too. All right, so that was second down, and now we're on and like now at least they're out of fucking timeouts, but there's still time on the clock, and the Giants take a knee again, and they wind it all the way down to like 25 seconds or something like that, 15 seconds maybe. And they're going to have to punt. They're going to have to do something on fourth down. They obviously can't take a knee again from the 3-yard line.
Right, and a punt is almost too risky, right?
Punt at this point is too risky, right? So the only rational play now is to run around for as long as you can, and then if you're completely in the clear, then you can get the punt off, right? Like if for some reason they've gone full punt block mode and there's nobody 40 yards down the field and you can just boot it, then go for it. But otherwise, you run out the back of the end zone or the side of the end zone and you take the safety, right? Because then at least you get to do the free kick from the 30-yard line or whatever it is. Now, the problem with that is that you're now doing this having not run enough time off the clock on the first two plays of the drive, so-called, and you're going to give Rodgers all of this fucking time, like enough time to at least make one or two plays. And so this was the thing that drove me nuts. It's not the fact that eventually they do the own safety thing and accept the 2 points. It's that if you're going to do that, you have to do it so that there's only like a couple of ticks left.
Yes.
You cannot give it so that there's like anything more than like 7 or 10 or 12 seconds on the clock gives Rodgers too much fucking time because that's a 15, 20-yard sideline route, and then all of a sudden you're in business with the Hail Mary.
Yeah, you should be.
I was like,
if you're gonna have any time on the clock, it should be just for one play. Like if you have a setup play like you described where you have enough time to do 15, 20, get out of bounds with like 3 seconds or whatever, and then chuck it. You never know what happens with when those.
Right. So obviously what the Giants are trying to do is they're trying to avoid turning the ball over on the 5-yard line when they're doing the stupid take a knee on first down and let them call a timeout. What I'm saying is that there are two things at play here. One, you're worried that Daniel Jones or Saquon is going to turn the ball over, right? That's one possible outcome. The second outcome is that Aaron Rodgers gets the ball back and throws a Hail Mary on your ass and wins the goddamn game at the end of the game. And to me, it's way more likely that you're going to give the ball back to someone who can then score a touchdown to win the game than on any given play, your quarterback or your running back is going to turn the ball over.
Right.
So to me, the safer play is to put the ball in somebody's hands and have them run around until they can't run around anymore and then go down, right?
What
Am I wrong here?
What's wrong with running it? Like, if you're going to do that, like, I mean, what would be wrong with handing it off and running it and trying to...
Yeah, just run a draw with Saquon right up the middle.
Right.
And then you take that extra half a second beat, and it's like, okay, clock ticks. And then you just run. And then you try to drive the pile.
Right.
And, like, they never blow the whistle right away when these piles are moving, right? And so the fear is that somebody bangs the ball out of there. But the other end of this is like, all right, if you can't fucking protect the football for 4 or 5 seconds when it's the only your whole fucking job, you don't deserve to win the goddamn game anyway, right?
At that point, you're not trying to break it for a touchdown. You're just trying to just move it a few yards, so just have max
give it
protection.
To the strongest guy.
Yeah.
The guy with strongest grip strength.
Yeah.
Stay
and
upright.
Push him forward.
Just stay upright as long as possible with your hands locked around it, your whole belly and body wrapped around that ball, and nobody can fucking take it from you. It was making me a fucking crazy person. And Brian was texting me, and he's taking the Giants' side on this. He thinks that they did the right thing. I disagree entirely.
Even that initial, how they started that whole possession, or just Because once you end up at where they ended up, basically everything else made sense. Like
Right. Well, Brian's rationale is he wants the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands as quickly as possible.
So he's not.
He wants Daniel Jones touching the ball as little as possible, which I fully understand. Right? Like I agree completely. But you cannot be a football team that builds its entire identity around making sure that your quarterback doesn't touch the ball. Right? That doesn't work. That's not how the sport works at all.
There was.
See, it's working now.
Right. There was that one play that didn't Saquon break it for like 50 yards on just a direct snap. Like maybe I'm sure that was an exciting play for people who don't like the quarterback. Like yes, more of that.
Yeah, it was great.
Just direct snap.
Saquon had a couple of nice runs in that game. Couple of really great, like he's just a completely different runner than he was trying to come back from that injury last year. It's the same exact thing that you saw in Ronald Acuna when he was coming back from his knee injury in the middle of the summer. Like there's just a hesitancy that exists in these guys' heads where they're just not sure if they can trust it yet. And Saquon did not trust his knee last year, and he's making cuts like he did when he was a rookie. Like he seems to be fully back. Which is a relief because it felt like maybe Saquon was fucking toast already, looking at what he did last year. But we don't have to keep going on about the Giants' end game there. But like it was just another example of me not being convinced that this coach. It's sort of like watching Kirby in the first couple of years, where it's like, okay, like there's a lot of enthusiasm here, and he seems to have the guys on his side, and everybody's working hard and pulling in the same direction.
Right.
But also. Kirby is a literal insane person on the sideline who seems to have no idea of what's actually happening during the game at any given moment.
Yeah.
And Daboll has a little bit of that going on too, I think.
Wasn't he like freaking out at the end of the game? Very excited.
Yeah, they're a very excitable bunch, these coaches. All right, I want to go to the Chargers game. Chargers and who the hell did they play?
The Browns?
Browns, yes. I think it was 30-28 in the closing moments of that game.
Yes.
And it's 4th and 1.5 or so at midfield. And the Chargers have the ball and they have the lead. They decide, now this is like classic Abe run and punt, right? Yes. That's Abe with a lead, Abe losing, his team is down by 30. He's like, just run and punt. Like that. Very anti-quarterback position, generally speaking.
With good reason, by the way.
Right. The Chargers elect not to run and punt. They decide that they're going to go for it on 4th and 1 from about midfield, only up by 2 points with, I forget exactly how much time was left on the clock, but it was less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was about a minute and change.
They were in danger of handing the ball over to the other team at midfield with a minute and a half to go with only a 2-point lead, right? So the other team would only need a couple of first downs before they kicked a long field goal to win the game.
To win, not even tied, just to yeah.
They go for it on 4th and 1, and it's an incomplete pass, and they do not convert, and they turn the ball over to the Browns. The Browns end up driving for 15 or 20 yards, kicking a long field goal and missing it, right? So it does not bite the Chargers in the ass, fortunately for the Chargers, and also fortunately for my bet on the Chargers to win the Super Bowl at the end of the year. Did the Chargers make the right decision there on 4th and short at midfield?
So, I mean, okay, so I think the answer depends on who you're playing. You know, so like this is a, Jacoby Brissett-led team, and so if you punt it, I mean, you're not going up against Rodgers, right? So you're not worried that, they're just going to drive in 70 seconds down the field for a field goal, right? So in that situation,
like worst case scenario on the punt, they get the ball at touchback at the 20-yard line.
Yeah,
right.
And so they would need like a good chunk of change. I mean, what did it end up being? 54, like a 50-plus yard.
It was a 54-yard field goal.
Right. So they would need to settle for something like that. So you need to move the ball. I don't know, like 40 yards or something, 50 yards, and then what? Like I think in this case, probably punt it. If it was like a very good quarterback, go for it. Did you not like that? Would you punt it no matter what? Or
no,
go
do not
for it
punt.
no matter what?
This is So this is in keeping with my take on the Giants end game. Almost never punt in football.
No matter who you're going up against, you can be going up against like a Mahomes type or
who is that does that? Les Miles? Who?
There have been some coaches through the years who have moved away, and the Chargers coach is a great example. I forget the guy's name right now, but he hates fucking punting. And
Lane Kiffin? And Lane Kiffin like not punting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, it's him.
I think Lance didn't do a lot of punting in his day.
Yeah, that's you and him are the same.
No, it's the correct thing according to the metrics. Like, you have 4 opportunities to gain 10 yards, and then why would you take only 3 of them? And I understand when you're down there in your own at your own end, and you don't want to hand the ball over in the scoring zone or what have you, but overwhelmingly, if you're near midfield, I see no good reason, unless it's a very long 4th down. Like, if it's 4th and 5 or less, and you're past your own 45 or so, you're anywhere in that midfield
So the distance
area.
matters. So you're saying, like, if we're 4th and 10, no way. But if it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, like, short yardage or
Short yardage. Okay. 4th down, end of the game. You can choose to end the game, or you can choose to give the other team an opportunity to win. Either way, if you don't get it or you punt it, they get the same opportunity to win, right? Now, you can argue about, they got to go 30 more yards, or they got to go 35 more yards or something like that. And yes, that matters. But ultimately, you're going from a non-zero chance to a 0 chance. Right.
But the thing is, there's also risk inherent in failing, right? You have now put yourself in a worse position, right? So it's not like an even choice. Like,
it's not exactly even, but it is in terms of the 0 chance or non-zero chance. What I'm saying is that's the bridge that is the larger bridge. The other bridges are smaller bridges.
Well, it's not too late to start your football coaching career.
But I think it really mattered who you're going up against to make these decisions. And my old school of thought that I still stick to is, if you can't make it in 3, you can't make it in 4. So punt, I don't know why. Where was this creativity on 1st and 10? Like, now you want to be razzle-dazzle? Shut the fuck up. Punt the ball, and then let the defense play.
It's just retreat. It's cowardice.
It's not retreat. It is recognition of past failure. Look, I had 3 cracks at this and nothing doing. All right, maybe the defense can do something.
But you get 4 cracks at it. This is what doesn't make
No, you get 3 cracks at it.
You can
but
choose.
What if you're on the, 2?
Yes, obviously there are situations.
But I'm asking Abe, what if it's 4th and 2 and goal at the 2?
Right. So I think it depends on. I always think I would never look at the numbers. I would just look at the situation. If it's a high-scoring game, or if I'm going up against a very good team.
Okay, so it's not always punt.
Yeah, I will take more risks against good teams. But if I'm going against a Jacoby Brissett caliber player, I'll just punt it. And I gotta fuck up somehow. And, take my chances there. Unless I have a terrible defense. I guess there's a lot of conditions to my statement. But, it all depends. If I have a terrible defense,
I don't know. To me, it's so easy. To me, we can choose to eliminate the possibility of this team winning by gaining 1.5 yards here. Or we can choose to give them a chance to win. And I would rather not do that.
So blind of all other facts. So even if a lot
of as usual, Bob is oversimplifying and acting like there is one thing, and it is football. And
I'm not oversimplifying. I think that is a good rule to go by, which is, and also the metrics tend to bear it out. You're at midfield and you're at 4th and short. You should fucking go. You should go for it like every single time. Anyway,
even if your offense sucks, you should go for it.
Next game, the Falcons and the Bucks played. The Bucks were the heavy favorite because the Falcons kind of stink. Falcons were getting owned pretty effectively through 4 quarters, and then they mounted a comeback late. They were down 21-7. They score a touchdown with 4 or 5 minutes to go or something like that. And they go for 2. Now, there's the first part of the equation. You're down 21-7. You probably are going to get the ball back at best one more time. Do you make it 21-14 there? Or do you go for 2 the way that the Falcons did to try to get a little bit closer?
This is one of those goofy advanced whatever somebody came up with that said you should always go for 2. I would not do that. I would just... Unless I needed to make up ground. My whole thing
if you think about it, going for 2 is a 50-50 proposition in the National Football League. Something like about 50-50, maybe a little bit worse than that.
Because they keep running that play you hate.
Yeah. So if they go for it and they miss it, there's, again, they have a 50-50 chance of, if they score another touchdown, going for it next time and getting it that time. And so the result is effectively the same as kicking 2 extra points. The Falcons ended up going for it and converting to make it 21-15, which puts them in the enviable position of simply needing a stop, a touchdown, and an extra point to now win the game, rather than a touchdown and an extra point to tie the game. It's 3rd and 5, maybe something like that. They'd given up one first down to the Bucs on the subsequent possession, but then they got to 3rd and whatever, and they got to stop. Like
yes. They were
I'm
able,
watching the game, and I stood up and I did a fist pump. It's like, fuck you, Brady. We're going to watch the Falcons come back on you this time.
They got a seemingly clean sack on Tom Brady.
I forget the guy's name. It's the only Falcons defender with a name, and his name I can't
Grady
tell you.
Jarrett?
Yeah, that guy.
I think
Jarrett.
they all have names.
They all have names, but Jarrett.
Maybe don't say that.
Jarrett's a name, though. Anyway, Jarrett comes across and sacks the guy, and it looks like, to me, a perfectly clean sack.
Right.
I saw no problem whatsoever.
Everyone except a few guys on the field, I think, like a perfectly good sack.
Tom Brady immediately is complaining, and he's staring at the he's making the throw the flag thing.
Yeah.
He points at the guy. Like, you see what that guy just did? And then the fucking flag comes in, and they call a 15-yard roughing the passer penalty and just hand the game to the Bucs.
Yeah, that's basically the game. Now, do you think that the Tua concussion had anything to do with it? Because the only argument I can think of is that they were concerned about some sort of ragdoll situation where he's so strong that he brought him down too harshly, this old geezer.
It's interesting because the Tua thing, the second one, the Thursday night one, he did kind of get spun around into the ground.
Yeah.
And this sort of looked like that. But the time Tua got spun around into the ground, that wasn't called for a penalty.
Yeah, and his head hit the... I mean, yeah, so... That is interesting. Yeah, so I'm wondering if they got like some sort of internal memo saying be mindful of.
I mean, they've been the last couple of years they've been more careful about the body slamming thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause you remember Ogletree, the dog's Ogletree?
Yeah,
like
Ogletree always body slammed.
His
people.
whole move was to just grab a guy like WWE style and slam him, like pile drive his ass to the ground. Yeah. And I would wince and cheer every single time because it was like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, fuck him up. That sort of thing. But they've made the Ogletree tackle effectively illegal in college and the NFL now, and certainly against quarterbacks. You can't grab a guy and either slam him to the ground or like use your weight to fall on him hard on purpose.
Explain why quarterbacks are special.
Because you don't want hurt quarterbacks. It's just
I don't want hurt anyone's.
Right, but people, the teams are made by their quarterbacks, so they're higher valued than the other players.
Okay, that's sort of like racist or something.
Not a lot of wide receivers making $50 million a year to play the sport. You want to protect the investment there.
And they're mostly like they're featured predominantly, Mahomes or
I know,
Lamar Jackson.
It seems like it's not fair, but whatever.
Yeah, it's very racist to want to protect Patrick Holmes and
it's something. It's something. I don't know what it is. It's something.
They are making it almost impossible though for the defensive players. Like, there are a lot of stuff that makes sense that don't like tackle at their legs or whatever. Or
don't lead with your helmet.
But that tackle, I mean, if a player can't bring a player down like that, then I don't know. What do you want them to do? I mean, if you want to do, hey, I want to sack by two-hand touch. Like if I touch you with my two hands, that should be the end of it, right? I mean, if you want to be that safe, but you can't give this very hard standard for these players to meet because, like, how else can they tackle other than what
he just ran at him and then grabbed him around the hips and then sort of fell down with him while holding on, and that was it. Like it didn't even look like a hard. Like I've seen, like, I know what a fucking penalty looks like in this sport. That did not look like a penalty. It didn't even, like, cross my mind that it could be a penalty. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the flag comes in. It's like, what is even happening?
And I'm sure most, like, fans who were watching who wanted Tom Brady not to win, like, they were halfway through celebrating that they were not even aware a flag came in. Like, wait, what? Did somebody jaw at somebody? Maybe with, like, a after the play kind of. But they're like, no, the actual play you just watched was illegal. And it's like, maybe, like, could a Grady Jarrett type lift a quarterback up and say, I can do with him what I want and just blow the whistle, ref, and then I can bring him back down, right? So basically, like, don't tackle him, just lift them and hold them. Just suspend it in air until the ref says, okay, you have successfully sacked them safely, and now let them go. Like, maybe that's a solution? I don't know, but there's got to be a better way.
Bogus. I don't know. Did the NFL say anything about that? Sometimes they, like, they say something about it the next day.
Sometimes they're like, "Yeah, sorry."
I didn't see anything about it.
I haven't heard. Maybe they did. I wasn't paying attention. But I believe this reffing crew was sidelined from the playoffs last year. Like, there are certain crews that are apparently not very good. And so they don't get selected for playoff games. And I think this was one of them. I think that's the last I read about it.
Fuck these guys. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Brady's now, and then icing on the cake is they throw up the graphic as the clock is going to 3 zeros. It's like Tom Brady now 11-0 all time against the Atlanta Falcons. It's like, well, that's not cool. You can't rub that in right now. After that, you didn't even give the Falcons a chance to march down the field and score.
Right.
I mean, it's not like the Falcons were definitely going to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like they weren't going
still,
anywhere.
it's like you've now taken the possibility and eliminated it, and like I don't know. I know that they want to protect the quarterbacks. My instinct at the end of any of these games, whether it's a pass interference call or it's a roughing the passer call or whatever it is, it's like if you're in the process of doing something that is going to end the competitive outcome of the game, like you are with this penalty ending any future possible competition happening in a game that is currently highly competitive, then you have to fucking swallow the whistle. Like, if it could go either way, then you swallow the fucking whistle. Right. And of course, the little tyrants in their zebra suits aren't going to do that most of the time. But all right, there was this piece in the Times back in August that I missed somehow. But because today was Indigenous Peoples Columbus Day, the Daily reran an old podcast.
It's a good compromise, by the way.
On their NPR show, right? So the Daily is a New York Times podcast, but sometimes I hear it because it's on NPR. And they were running one from August. The piece was about surveillance at work.
Okay.
And I will pull it up here.
Like the keystrokes and activity on the computer and...
Right. So it's titled The Rise of the Worker Productivity Score. It's August 14th. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes.
Right away, I'm for it.
It was a fun read in part because as you scroll through it, it keeps track of whether or not you are being appropriately productive in your reading of the article. So it times you, it explains how much time you spent scrolling and clicking, and it counts your keystrokes and your idle time, and then gives you a grade at the end of the article, assuming you make it that far, to tell you how productive you were in your reading of the article. And that's to give you an idea of what it's like to be at work with one of these productivity monitoring software things running constantly in the background. Do you deal with this at all? Is there any of this surveillance at your job?
It works for the government. Are you kidding?
I'm not aware of any such surveillance.
Yeah, I don't think the union would put up with that very long.
Also, are they sure that they can capture productivity just by keystrokes and these sort of things? I mean,
I'm sure it's many measures.
Right. There are many measures, and it's the whole point of the article is that there is a great deal of debate and conversation around how effective this actually is at capturing real productivity rather than just being a proxy for having an asshole micromanager yelling at you over your shoulder all of the time to keep your eye on the screen, basically.
Right.
And so, like, I'm reading the article, and as I'm reading the article, because I have it pulled up where I can read maybe 3 to 5 paragraphs at a go, and so I'm not touching my mouse, I'm not scrolling at any time, and then it starts dinging me for being idle. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm reading the article right now. Why are you taking points off? But like the point is that there are large percentages of a person's day where they appear to be idle according to this productivity tracking software, when in reality they're doing their work.
Yeah, but you take that into account. You expect a certain percentage of the day to be not touching the computer. But if it starts to exceed that...
Okay, but if you work for a company that has like 50,000 employees or something. You work, you're United Healthcare, and you have a whole ton of employees. It's like they don't actually, right? Because the software just gives you a score at the end of the day. It's like you had a 60% productivity day as opposed to a 90% product. Your partner down the street there doing the exact same job scored 30% higher. What's your fucking problem, right?
Right.
So the point is that this doesn't apply to like the sort of person who can just talk to their boss about why they appeared idle for 70% of the time. It applies to like huge numbers of employees who to their you work as part of a team, and so the manager has certain quota numbers to hit, and that person's manager has certain productivity quota numbers to hit, and it all works its way up, and it's shit just constantly flowing downhill, and it's a very bad and dystopian system. I really encourage you to click on the link and go read the story, because there's a bunch of interesting and sort of terrifying anecdotes. Somebody got a job making $200 an hour and realized that she was being tracked in 10-minute increments so that she would not be paid for any 10-minute chunks of time where she was considered idle by the software, right?
Like my job.
And so... yeah, I knew that you were going to turn this into...
fuck all these people.
I knew that
Be
you were
more
going to turn this
productive.
into how they should be working harder. But the point is that in order to hit 40 hours a week, she was finding herself having to work 55 to 60 hours a week just to make up for the so-called downtime that in reality wasn't actually downtime at all.
Right.
This reminds me a little bit of my first pizza managing job for the awful humans who ran the PJ's franchise in Athens there. And we would have to run people out on breaks in like 1 to 3 to 5 minute rotations because we were simply not allowed basically to schedule someone like if you were scheduled for a 4-hour shift, you were guaranteed to have like a half a dozen little 2 to 5 minute so-called breaks where you clock out and you just have to go fucking sit outside.
Yeah,
and
right.
like you present it as like a break, but in reality it's just I've got to get you off the clock for 5 minutes in order to keep my productivity number at this certain level for this hour. And we're going to do that by taking a fucking dollar out of your pocket. Right? You can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're not free to just, all right, I'm just going to go home and relax and I'll see y'all tomorrow. You just have to putz around somewhere within the vicinity of the place and you're brought back on. You're still on the clock, just you're not getting paid for it.
The ideal employee at a place like that under the management that we were under was someone who was both like manically productive while they were on the clock, but also like hilariously lazy. And like, so like, okay, I'm going to pull a random name out. John, I need you this for 45 minutes to make 300 fucking pizzas.
Yeah.
And it's what you're going to do. For 45 minutes, you're going to fucking go absolutely insane making a ceaseless pile of pizzas. And then I'm going to make you stand outside for like 20 minutes. And you're just going to, and we're only going to pay you for the 45 minutes.
Right.
Like this was like wildly unacceptable, from a ethical laborer's
I think it's legally
practice.
Also, right? I think
Probably
we decided
not remotely
yeah.
legal. Like, this is the sort of practice that drove my old friend Mike D into getting his law degree.
Very literally,
because he thought I have to become a lawyer in order to fight exactly this sort of thing. And instead he went and like he tries to keep people in jail. Like he made the way that he paid off all of his student loans was to go work at a high-powered Atlanta law firm whose whole goal was to deny prisoners claims about mistreatment in prisons.
Well, I shouldn't have murdered people. Then he could get his inhaler.
That's true.
Anyway, so to the point where I'm having to clock myself out to go, like I'm on a, this is before I was on salary, so I'm making whatever that is that I'm making in an hour, and it's like if I wanted to smoke a cigarette in my 12-hour shift, I would clock myself out and like be on break for 10 minutes and like not getting paid. And like it's fucking insane that was the way that we treated these people and the way that we were told to treat ourselves in order to keep that productivity number where the productivity number needed to be. And of course it's nothing like like, again, it's nothing like what these people are dealing with in terms of being monitored on their computers all day long. But it's that level of like intense micromanagement where like, so because it became something where like these assholes would make the schedule, right? So the asshole who's my boss is making the fucking schedule and saying you need this many people during this amount of time, and it's always, of course, it's an extremely like bare minimum amount of labor required to hit the expected sales goals for that hour. But on top of that, it's your job to make sure that if there's any downtime, if there's a hint of downtime, you put that asshole who's only making minimum wage on break and you make them stand outside for fucking 4 minutes. Right. And then you get their asses right back inside because they have to be back on the clock making pizzas as soon as something comes in.
I'm not sure if this is what they mean by when they say this, but is this what people mean by wage theft, or are there other examples that are more applicable?
No, there were other examples of wage theft in which people were getting clocked out like 20 or 30 minutes or an hour before they were actually done there.
Okay.
And that was a whole other problem. But like what we were doing was just like a dubious sort of an ethical, I mean, obviously it's not an ethical gray area. It was a monstrous practice, and it was just stealing from the lowest rung employee that you could possibly find. Like the ideal, getting off track here, but the ideal employee for these assholes is somebody who lived in the dorms across the street who we said didn't actually need any money, right?
Right.
So the
this
goal,
is like beer money, so it's no big thing to them.
The goal is to have someone who you can call at like 10:30 at night on a random Thursday when you're getting slammed at the store and be like, hey, can you come across the street and help us make pizzas for like an hour? And then they show up and you have them do that work and then you put them on fucking break as soon as the screen is clear. Right. It's like you're not even going to pay them the $5.50 an hour because you're going to put them on like it's just but that was how we had to do it because the shit rolled downhill. And like I was going to get fucking fired. I wasn't going to get a raise, or I wasn't going to hit my bonus that week, where a bonus, quote unquote, is just getting me up to like a living goddamn wage, right? For fucking killing myself.
Right. And all the profits, all the money seems to kind of flow upward, right? I mean, they'll throw you a bone just so you can...
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
Right. Anyway, with the pandemic and everybody working from home, there's been like a fucking revolution in productivity software. And so it tracks everything from if you have a camera on you, it will take a picture of you and a screenshot of your computer at the same time, and they'll do this like 6 to 10 times an hour.
Like,
and so
I think it fucking should. If you're gonna work from home, do your job.
No, you're completely wrong here. That if you're doing your job, that will be borne out by the fact that you completed the tasks that were assigned to you, and if you have completed those tasks, it shouldn't matter if you did it in fucking 5 minutes or you did it in 45 minutes. If the tasks were put in front of you and you did them, then congratulations, you've done your goddamn job. And some people work in a way where they're able to just stare at the screen and just get stuff done all in a row.
And that's how else do people get stuff done,
Bob?
That's
great for them. There are any number of other ways to be productive. Right. It doesn't all have to be in the exact way that the stupid software wants you to be productive.
Right. Also, I can't imagine. I mean, I work with the federal government. I don't know if it's different in the private sector. From what I gather, it's not that different. But a lot of computer-based positions, there isn't like something that you have to do for 40 hours straight, right? There's an ebb and flow. There's a rhythm to that. So it's not always the case that there's something that needs to be done on the computer and you have to be staring at your computer to do. Sometimes you're calling somebody, sometimes you're interacting with somebody, and it's likely that they're factoring that in. But when you're in person, like, I realize that I'm more productive on the days that I'm away from home. I mean, away from the office, because when you're at the office, you inevitably will be talking to the other people at the office, right? And so, like, do these companies where they're using these productivity tools, are they using that in the office too? Like, oh, you're not...
Probably. Or,
because usually in the past, a manager would be there, and then you're like, okay, you're not going to just run off somewhere, but you're just at your computer or you're talking to somebody else down the hall. But nobody seemed to mind that in the past. Are they changing that too?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just a question of justifying your idle time, and that's whether you're at home or whether you're at the office. So it's responding to bosses who say things like, why were you idle for 15 minutes at 11:15? That wasn't lunchtime yet. And it's like, well, I had to go to the bathroom, if you really want to know. And It was not a pleasant experience for anyone because I had some bad sushi last night.
Right.
Like, we are human beings. We need to be permitted to sort of do what we need to do in our lives. And yeah, there are slackers, and that's a bummer. But like, if the job, which is a thing that exists that you need an employee to do, if it is not something that you can then look at the work that was produced and decide whether or not the work was sufficient to the time, then there's something wrong with the job itself, right? It's not just a question of whether, because then these people install these mouse jiggling, a mouse jiggler on their computer, so it looks like they never go idle, and they're just busy 100% of the time. I don't know. There's something deeply dehumanizing and like deeply alienating about the idea that you're being constantly monitored for your so-called productivity. Right.
Is it the standardized test? Like, how did that work out? Like, I do wonder what the larger goal is with these. Like, you try to come up with a top-down system, and then, like, so with standardized tests, they were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we know a student in Iowa versus a student in Georgia in the third grade and this grade and that grade? And then in some schools, they would just focus overly on passing the test instead of actually teaching the kids important stuff. So the only thing that mattered is that you pass this standardized test, right? And so there's this weird shift of priorities when it comes to that. There were scandals where people were cheating. Atlanta had a scandal with cheating where everybody's just trying to pass this test. You're just fixated on this thing. And similarly, when you have these productivity things, what happens? Mouse jigglers all over Amazon. There's like YouTube videos that teach you how to bypass it depending on what standards your IT has. Like, I mean, basically now all people are going to do is just find a way to get past this productivity thing.
Right.
So it's like you're creating perverse incentives, and the focus shifts from the work to how to bypass this cumbersome thing.
You're spending all of this money. You pay this software company a whole pile of money to increase your productivity score, and all you've done is increase your productivity score, handed over a bunch of your profits to a fucking asshole productivity software company.
Right.
And in the meantime, real productivity goes down because people are more obsessed with making sure they hit a bogus number than actually doing the job the right way.
Right. So basically then it's like, are you even achieving the things that you set out to achieve to start this? Because
no, it's the fucking vampiric consultancy class once again coming in and skimming their bit off the top.
Right.
Scumbags. Let's see here. Also in our Bogus Future, I'm going to play for you a quick video, Abe, without setting it up at all. This is a lot like something that we have discussed before in modern cars. This is the Cadillac Lyric, which is their new all-electric vehicle.
Even getting into the glove box is weird. You don't have a traditional latch. Instead, you go into the touch screen, to the controls menu, and there's a little icon for glove box release. You push that, and then it pops open automatically.
Wow.
No! God!
So I didn't realize that was going to happen at the end there.
But that's very accurate.
But that is probably the correct reaction. All right, so to summarize for people who could not see that, although it was well narrated, we have instead of any buttons anywhere on this dashboard, we just have an interactive touchscreen display. They've removed so many buttons, in fact, that they've even removed the little handle that's on your glove compartment. So you cannot physically open the glove compartment area. You have to go on the screen through 3 parts of the menu to hit the button that then pops the glove box open.
You get in an accident and you need to reach your hammer that you keep in the glove box. You can't because the electrical system's all crashed.
Yeah. Seems bad. Is it bad?
It's terrible. Who thought of that? I mean, some of the other stuff is stupid, but whatever. That is outrageous. Like the fact that you can't even, like, you can't open that compartment. Like, you got to go through the stupid app and turn it off for no reason because somebody thought it'd be smart. It's very dumb. What is it, that stupid expression, all politics is local? I think all controls should be local too. Just everything, wherever it is, you should be able to pull something and it'll open in the car. I mean, everything should
and
just
in
be
the event of like the fucking EMP, like, you know, somebody detonates an EMP over your city,
right,
and now you can't get in your fucking glove box. What are we doing here?
It's so stupid, yeah.
The easiest thing, like, it's just a solved problem. And I know that, like, it's not fun to just sell a car for $30,000, and so you've got to make it fucking weirder and cooler. But, like, stop it. If there's a latch on your glove box, you should just be able to pull the goddamn latch and it should open. And by the way, the trunk and the doors operate in the same way. I didn't show you the whole video, but you like push a button that then triggers an electronic release. So at least it's not a touch screen, at least, but even getting into the trunk, you push the Cadillac symbol on the back, and that it doesn't do a manual, like, physical thing.
Yeah.
It triggers an electronic thing that then raises the trunk up.
That's how our cars kind of are.
No, but when you touch the button on the bottom of the Honda trunk, it's an actual physical release. And in the alternative, you can stick the key in and pop it.
Yeah, we have the key alternative, but even my old car, like, it's not an actual, it's a button that you're pressing.
I don't know. When I pull the handle on the car door, it opens.
No, the car door, yes, but not the trunk.
But you have to apply a pressure, don't you? Like for that to
you have
activate?
to apply pressure to the thing.
Yes, but you're still pressing a button. It's not like just the key. It used to be you turn the key. Right. Or there was like a thing for the latch.
Right.
Well, whatever. On the new Cadillac, you press the door handle very and it triggers an electronic release as opposed to just opening the manual latch.
On a larger sense, do you think the younger people are going to accept this? Just like, I'm sure there are some people who, when we went from the windows being rolled down, manually versus the buttons that we have. Like, when I saw a car with a button, I'm like, oh, great, then I got to do this stupid fucking thing. Yeah. But I wonder if somebody before was like, no, what was wrong with the thing? Like, I get a...
No, probably not.
I had no problem. Like, I would never seek out a car that, like it wouldn't bother. Like, when I was buying my 2003 car, last time I got a car where it was maybe an option to even have a crank window.
Yeah.
Like, do they exist anymore?
I don't think so.
That Chris's Honda had them.
Yeah, that was a 1997 Honda Civic, though.
Yeah.
98 Civic, maybe.
Yeah.
But I've had more problems with the cranks than I've had with any buttons. Like, I've never had one of the buttons
thing. It
fail.
was by far an improvement.
I've had the cranks break on me before.
Like, the handle would just kind of be gone?
Yeah, it would lose. It would get off track.
The scissor arm, which is what raises and lowers it in there, would just break.
Yeah, there was all kinds of things. You know, everybody preferred the automatic windows. Right. This isn't that. This is... I think that young people will very quickly accept it, but I don't think that if you go back in time, there were people going like, you're too good for a crank?
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly better.
Yeah.
What's funny is, like, the technology that I'm most excited about right now is very much technology that isn't pushing the bleeding edge of anything. Like, there's a new Amazon Kindle coming out, and it's called the Kindle Scribe. And it's just an e-ink display. It's a 10.5-inch e-ink display, and it has a note. You can draw on it.
Oh,
like, it has,
nice.
The only cool thing about it is it's got a stylus, and you can take notes right on it. And it's a nice big, 10.5 inches is almost as big as, a regular piece of paper. It's a nice big device. And it's like, I've been waiting for years to get an e-ink newspaper that just updates every day, right?
That would be amazing, yeah. Oh, can't you do that with these iPad and touchpad kind of things?
Yeah, but I don't want a fucking iPad.
As a screen.
I want a big, 20 by 20 or whatever a standard newspaper page is, and I want to keep it should be 5 or 6 of them in a stack, and I can just it just updates with the New York Times every morning. There's a new New York Times front page waiting for me when I go make my coffee in the morning.
Oh, that'd be nice.
That's my ideal. It's just like a giant e-ink piece of paper that folds up like a regular newspaper. But this, in the meantime, this the Kindle Scribe I'm excited about. But it's not like I could give a shit about the new Pixel Watch or whatever. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, the revolutionary iPhone 14. Like, is it still just a fucking phone that you put in your pocket? Like, who gives a shit?
They're all they're all the same the last few years because there hasn't been any leap in anything. Like, we went from the flip to this brick style phone, and the batteries are pretty decent now, but there isn't, like, I don't know what the next thing will be, but I couldn't tell you the difference between a 13 and a 14 and a 15 next year. Like, they all look
I read a review
similar.
about the new Pixel 7, and it was like, you know what Google did great this time around? They're really focused on call quality. It's like, oh, is that the great big advance? Is that Google's paying attention to the one thing that the phone is actually fucking supposed to be for?
The next frontier, call quality.
Yeah, who gives a shit? All right, last thing on our Bogus Future. You've had a take in the past about how we are stupid to be going into space.
Yes.
Right? And that we've got this wonderful Earth here. Why are we going out there?
Yeah.
Right? That's sort of Abe's position. Or you can restate it however.
No,
you see
that's
fit.
pretty accurate. And then also, I don't know much about space either, so that doesn't help things. I'm like, this is the devil right here. Water, land. What do you need all this other stuff?
All right. I want to read from an excerpt of William Shatner's new book. Now, as you'll remember, William Shatner, in the last year or so, went on Jeff Bezos' big penis rocket.
Yeah, with the blue. Which one was his? His was
the blue
Origin space shuttle on October 13th, 2021. He was 90 years old, the oldest living person to travel into space.
It's like a year ago.
Wow,
yeah, October 2021.
Yeah,
he's got a book coming out, some sort of memoir, I'm sure.
Christmas is coming.
And there's an excerpt in the Variety magazine website. I'm going to read a bit of it here because I found it aligning with sort of Abe's position, but also just sort of being touching in its own way. In addition to that, I looked down and I could see the hole that our spaceship had punched in the thin, blue-tinged layer of oxygen around Earth. It was as if there was a wake trailing behind where we had just been, and just as soon as I'd noticed it, it disappeared. I continued my self-guided tour and turned my head to face the other direction, to stare into space. I love the mystery of the universe. I love all the questions that have come to us over thousands of years of exploration and hypotheses. Stars exploding years ago, their light traveling to us years later. Black holes absorbing energy. Satellites showing us entire galaxies in areas thought to be devoid of matter entirely. All of that has thrilled me for years. But when I looked in the opposite direction, into space, there was no mystery, no majestic awe to behold. All I saw was death. I saw a cold, dark, black emptiness. It was unlike any blackness you can see or feel on Earth. It was deep, enveloping, all-encompassing. I turned back toward the light of home. I could see the curvature of Earth, the beige of the desert, the white of the clouds, and the blue of the sky. It was life, nurturing, sustaining life. Mother Earth, Gaia, and I was leaving her. Everything I had thought was wrong. Everything I had expected to see was wrong. I had thought that going into space would be the ultimate catharsis of that connection I had been looking for between all living things, that being up there would be the next beautiful step to understanding the harmony of the universe. In the film Contact, when Jodie Foster's character goes to space and looks out into the heavens, she lets out an astonished whisper. They should have sent a poet. I had a different experience because I discovered that the beauty isn't out there, it's down here with all of us. Leaving that behind made my connection to our tiny planet even more profound. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. The contrast between the vicious coldness of space and the warm nurturing of Earth below filled me with overwhelming sadness. Every day we are confronted with the knowledge of further destruction of Earth at our hands, the extinction of animal species, of flora and fauna, things that took 5 billion years to evolve, and suddenly we will never see them again because of the interference of mankind. It filled me with dread. My trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral. I'll stop there. The whole thing is worth reading. I just read a big chunk of it, though. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. He also talks about how he's not the first person to have this sort of shift in perspective, that many astronauts sort of get this sort of feeling when they go out into space and then look back.
It's interesting because when he came back, he was so into it.
He was extraordinarily moved by the experience.
Yeah. But he was probably still processing, because the camera was like right on him as soon as they touched down, and that Bozos guy was like embracing him and whatever. But it seemed like he was kind of processing.
He was in the moment very grateful, I think, for the experience. Like he felt it as a profound emotional thing, regardless of whether, like, he thought that now he wants to go to fucking Jupiter,
right? Which
obviously he does not. I think that his emotion in that moment and his gratitude towards Bezos in that moment was as heartfelt as this piece a year later.
It's just interesting.
Yeah.
But I am surprised that there aren't more people who think that without even having to go up into space, because there's literally, I mean, there may be something very far away, but at least from what we can see, there's nothing there. Even like Mars, there's nothing. There may have been something there at some point, but there's nothing now. So it's like, what is the point? Like if I'm in Atlanta today and I'm going to see a friend in Los Angeles, I'm going to go to Los Angeles, and that's something there. But if I'm just going nowhere, what the fuck is the point? Like I'm going to get on a boat and just go nowhere? It doesn't make any sense.
It's worth exploring the unknown, certainly, right? Finding out what the fuck is out there.
Maybe. I just don't think we have the tools yet. I think it's fine what they're doing, these baby steps, but we're just so many generations away from any sort of interesting travel, and it just sucks out there. This place is perfect. I'm telling you. If we have
the thing that, and of course he loses me a little bit when he starts talking about how it is us and we are destroying the planet, and maybe to an extent that's true, but I always sort of default to like, I've said this recently and before on the podcast about the George Carlin's his line about the Earth is gonna be fine.
Yeah, like, we're fucked. Yeah.
It's the people who are fucked.
Yeah.
That is the fundamental thing that I think, like, even if you take out the framing of the global warming or climate change or man-caused climate change and all of that, it's the inevitability of the destruction of this incredibly precious and unlikely thing that is the Earth is like a staggering thing to have to try to come to terms with all at once, right?
Yeah.
And so if he wants to frame it in terms of climate change because that's sort of how he's thinking of it, that's fine. Ultimately, I think that like I was saying at the top of the show, like fucking Pangea is going to reform at some point on the long run. Like the Earth's oceans will rise and fall. There will be enormous catastrophic volcanoes. There will be fucking asteroids. There will be earthquakes that
Michael Bay and Roland Emmerich movies.
Right. Unspeakable destruction
right.
And the end of 99.5% of all life on this Earth, no matter what the stupid humans do in our relatively short time here. And it's just, whether you think that it's because man is like somehow responsible for the end of it, which to me is just, it speaks to a level of egocentrism of what humans are capable of even doing here that is completely misplaced. Like it's impossible for our brains to understand the sort of time scales that we're dealing with
right.
here, that mass extinctions happen, we come and we go, we're going to be fucking gone. All of us gone. Everything we ever cared about fucking completely gone. Like this is just an incredible miracle and an impossible coincidence that we're here sharing it together now. And like that is the feeling that you should grasp onto, is just this incredible gratitude for even getting a moment to experience it when that was just incredibly unlikely by any reasonable understanding, whether you think it's God or nature or sheer random accident. In terms of likelihoods, it's got to be very small.
Right, but I think, the timelines are way different. Who cares what happens in a couple 100 million years? If you have a hospitable planet and you make it less so, then try not to do that. Like, you can't control things that are outside your control, or something's going to happen in 300 million years, but if it's like within a few generations and you can do something about it, at least try to do something about it.
Yes, at least try. But also, Bill Shatner is overstating. I think it's in his quote there at the end about the destruction of the Earth at our hands, I think is like things that took
being dramatic.
I know, but things that took 5 billion years to evolve. Yeah, sure. Mass extinct, like the end of all life as we know it on this planet over and over again throughout those 5 billion years, right? There are unforeseen consequences to action and inaction all of the time, absolutely. But on anything if he's talking in terms of the 5 billion year time scale, I don't think that man's impact on this planet is as meaningful as he's making it out to be in that moment. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Facebook or Twitter. Head on over to brainiron.com, castironbrains.com. We've once again avoided talking about the end of the internet as we know it.
I think this is a new bit.
Maybe it is. The good news is that is going to be a case before the Supreme Court sooner or later. So
good. We'll talk about it in summer.
Almost certainly get to talk about it eventually. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig. Find his rock and roll band at tetramermusic.com. That's tetramermusic.com. Abe, did you make it to the movies? Before we talk about Blonde, did you see anything else?
Yes, I did. This is a rough stretch of movies, but I did go see Amsterdam, which is a movie that didn't get a lot of marketing push because it just kind of came and went.
I think it's a bunch of commercials with all the famous faces on it.
Yeah,
so that's that one.
Yeah, a lot of famous names: Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, all that stuff. John David Washington was.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington. It was very all over the place. It wasn't a very good movie. The story centered around
doesn't all over the place just describe David Russell's entire sort of filmmaking oeuvre?
Is he not good? A good director? Like I thought he made decent movies, but at least
no, he's good, but he's just all over the place.
Yeah, but this was one of those movies. But basically, it was like 1930s era America about like this push towards fascism or whatever. So they're trying to make some sort of connections to the present, but it's just very sloppy, not very good.
It reads as a movie with a lot of like zany hijinks. And I always get the feeling that if you're pushing the zany hijinks like to its limit, you go right up to the edge of being very stupid very quickly.
Right. It was right there. I do want to focus on Denzel Washington's kid. This John David Washington. There's some actors and actresses who I'm like, the jury's out on whether they're good as actors. One of them is the lady in Blonde, but the jury is still out on her. The jury is back in on John David Washington. He's not a good actor. Like he wasn't
not
good in any of the movies that I've seen. He was, I guess, okay in Ballers, that The Rock show on HBO, but like Tenet. In this movie, he's just flat. I'm like, maybe that's what the director is calling for, but...
So I thought that worked in Tenet.
Right, so that's why I was like, I don't know. Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't know, maybe it called for this, but he did kind of a similar thing in this movie, and Margot Robbie was like so much better than him, and they were kind of like, and Christian Bale was fine. Everybody else was fine. The movie didn't work, but like John David Washington stood out as being not particularly good. So jury's back in. He's out.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else? Just that one?
Yeah, as far as movies, that was it.
All right. Let's talk about Blonde. What is this is a 2 hour and 45-minute long movie. We watched it in two chunks. We watched the first hour and 45 or so of it, and then we watched the last hour of it a couple nights later.
It was not because it was boring.
It was just getting too late.
It was just I didn't want to stay up another hour and a half and then also have to wind down.
Right. I mean, I watched it the week before, but the one thing I can say about the movie is that it was a chore to watch. And I love movies. I go to the movies all the time. If I'm watching a movie over two settings, it's always a bad sign. There's never like, this is so great, let me save it for tomorrow. Like, no, I want to watch the movie now. And the movie I just wanted it to end. There was nothing good about it. I don't think there was anything interesting about it. Most of the stuff is made up. And I don't care if it's true or not. Just the story itself just didn't really resonate with me.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. And I liked Ana de Armas's performance a lot as well.
Yeah, her performance is what you liked, I'm sure.
How dare you? Again, by the way, and not that every movie or any movie needs to titillate me in order to be good, or in order for anything, right? The purpose of the movie is not to titillate me necessarily, or its audience at all, But Ana de Armas keeps making movies where she's naked and it's not titillating. Like it's the opposite. It's very uncomfortable sexual situations that she keeps appearing in, like that Ben Affleck movie that she was in. Adrian Lynn.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that movie.
What was the name of that movie?
It was like Suburban Water or something. It was Deep Water.
Deep Water.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I think it was Deep Water. And again, she's like, I mean, I don't know how to say it without being like creepy and weird, I guess, if you want to take this as creepy and weird. I think she's legitimately one of the most beautiful people on the planet, at least in terms of like who they put out in front of us to consume. I think she's like a perfect looking specimen of the human species. And like, you know, as a red-blooded American male, you know, you want to see her doing stuff, being naked. But like that movie, like she was naked and doing sex stuff in that movie is very uncomfortable. Like it was deeply unpleasant interactions. And then in
she was getting like raped in some of. I mean,
in Blonde, she's naked like half the time, and none of it is like you don't feel good about it at any point. Lots of assaults and
how many
rapes
rape scenes were in that movie? There were at least 2.
I think just 2.
Yeah.
Just 2.
At least 2.
Plenty of slapping her around and bloodying her up when she's already naked. It's not a pleasant experience in terms of, you know, a popcorn movie that you just enjoyed hanging out and taking in. I do think a lot of the criticism is wildly misplaced. If you read any of the reviews about this movie, they talk about how this is somehow like instrumentalizing Marilyn Monroe, or it's like it's just abusing her for the sake of abuse.
People are always going to say that.
And I don't understand that, because like we watched a stupid movie a couple of weeks ago called Hush, which is about this lady who's
deaf.
She's
and
deaf and mute, and she's in a house in the woods in the middle of fucking nowhere.
She lives there. She decided to live there.
Right.
Okay.
She can't hear shit. Wants to live in the middle of nowhere. It's very safe.
And a killer shows up and kills her neighbor, and then like bangs on her door and ends up torturing her for half the night.
Hilarity ensues.
Right. Not a very good movie, but has like 90% or something on Rotten Tomatoes. Like again, like you grade on a curve, I guess, for stupid horror movies or whatever. But not a peep in any of the reviews of Hush about like it just being torture porn for 2 hours, and because there's no redeeming narrative quality to the Hush story. It's just about torturing this woman and seeing how long she can hold out, and then eventually having her overcome her attempted killer at the very end.
But what's the narrative quality in Blonde?
The thing that I think a lot of people get wrong about these sorts of movies, a movie like Blonde, is that it criticizes it for saying something about the culture, or I'm getting this exactly backwards. Is it possible that your criticism of Blonde isn't of the movie itself, but it's that you didn't understand what the movie was trying to say?
Totally. Because if the movie's trying to say a thing, it's that she was treated shitty, right?
Right.
But there's no plot to that movie.
It's
I don't
one
understand any of what I just watched except Marilyn Monroe was treated shitty.
I could come up with any number of interpretations of that movie that are valid or invalid in equal measure, according to how far you're willing to go with me on the whatever I make up about the movie. I think you could say plenty of interesting things about celebrity and what America does to celebrity, the way that we devour our celebrities, and the fact that we've evolved into a society that makes celebrities out of each and every one of us by giving us a movie production studio in our pocket and then putting everybody on social media, and now everybody's on Instagram or TikTok. Like, what is the algorithm on TikTok? The whole thing is designed around you putting your face front and center on the screen. Right. And it, like, apparently the way that the TikTok algorithm works is that it prioritizes selfie videos, like specifically in that way, where you could make a short form movie of anything that's 10 seconds to 2 minutes long and put it on TikTok. But what it wants, what the algorithm delivers to people over and over again, specifically is the full frontal face shot, right? It is that thing. They want the human person and not of your friend. They don't want you filming someone else. They want you holding that phone up in front of your face and performing for the camera in that way. That's a fact of our modern life, and that is what this movie did to Marilyn Monroe, is that it completely dehumanizes her in dramatic ways. I mean, there are dozens of shots of huge crowds of leering and jeering men just over and over and over again. And if you think that what this movie is doing is it's bizarre to me that you can read criticisms of this movie in half a dozen major outlets that are being critical of the movie for doing the thing that it is so obvious to me it is criticizing itself.
That happens all the time. It's very dumb.
Yeah.
You shouldn't read those.
Right, but I mean, you say I shouldn't read it. It's the New York Times. Right.
But I feel like that happens so much about every movie.
Okay,
it's like, no, that's what it was trying to do.
Right. So it's one thing when it's like the Book of Mormon or it's South Park or something, and they're mad at it for an African stereotype. In the Book of Mormon, for example, people freaked out because the African warlords who these Mormons went to go try and save were stereotypes. It's like, well, what you are clearly not understanding is that this is a stereotype that is derived from having imbibed and completely drank in all of American culture, right? They didn't invent this character out of whole cloth. They're using the stereotype that exists in American culture to skewer it, to point out the ways in which it is flawed, so that if you find it offensive, what you should find offensive is the way that exact character has been a part of American culture for the last 100 fucking years, right? That's the point of the fucking satire. You're missing the whole point. And so if you then take that and it's understandable when people screw up parody in that way, right? Like, it's easy because the whole point of parody is that it's going to fly over the heads of the dumbest fucking 50% of the audience no matter what. But if you're going to then take that standard and apply it to regular art, it seems to me that now we're moving to an even dumber place, where you cannot allow art to be a commentary on anything but itself, that the art has to stand and fall entirely on its own, and it can't possibly be commenting on something in the culture, right? It can't possibly be it can't have its own point of view. It has to stand or fall entirely based on how I'm taking it in. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off.
I don't think that you're off at all. I just also don't think that movie was very good.
Right. Which is the problem.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And also that was like weird and kind of dumb.
I'm sorry, Laura. You were going to say something?
No, I was it.
Okay. So I didn't read all these reviews. I just take a gander at the numbers, that comes up. But did anyone criticize the movie because not only was it an unflattering kind of like biopic or whatever it is of Marilyn Monroe, but also a very uncharitable, although it can still be accurate because there's a lot of stories about JFK being a rapist type, right? Did anyone criticize that part of it where it just so callously suck me off, woman, or whatever the hell happened at that scene?
Right.
When it's that artsy, like it was, I don't know, people probably haven't seen it. It's very artsy throughout.
Right.
It's not like it has little artsy moments.
Right.
It's very heavy on we're doing a thing.
Right.
And when you do a thing, you no longer need to be accurate at all.
Right.
Which it works.
I don't understand why. So there are a number of different reviews that I read that complained about the fact that this will be the definitive understanding of who Marilyn Monroe really was, rather than that this will be treated as a biopic, right? That this will be treated as
I don't think that it will.
Essentially an unauthorized biography of the character, that this is the one that will live in the imagination. And to an extent, the point is that it already is the one that lives in the collective imagination.
That, but also,
we
I don't
reduced
think
her
it will.
to this thing that she was, that like, I don't know. Like I never read the Joyce Carol Oates book that this is based on. I understand that it is fairly coherent with the source material in that way. But what I just don't understand why you would be upset at this. Like I'm sorry, but Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean, the reason that we don't have a picture of who she was as a human being is because we did that to her as a culture, right? And what this Andrew Dominic movie is doing is showing us what we did to this woman as a culture and making us own it. And we need to, like, and I'm not saying that it's some, like, there's ethical import here that every American should be forced to watch this and come to grips with what we've done. No, that's fucking stupid.
We were not born.
Right, we weren't even around. But I think that it is an interesting document of what it means to be a celebrity, and it's an interesting commentary on precisely that, and the way that a person can completely lose their identity in pursuit of something that they're not even sure that they actually want.
Right.
Yeah, there's some like sort of bogus Freudian psychoanalyzing going on here of someone that we can't possibly know her inner life in that way. Yeah, sure, and that can be stupid. But I thought it was an interesting movie, and it was worth watching. And
I didn't think it was a slog at all. I relatively enjoyed watching it. I wasn't bored.
Yeah.
I just the whole time, you know what? If I hadn't seen The Master, I might not like this movie as much. But if I ever got to why am I watching this, I would think, oh, at least it's not The Master. Yeah. So this is better than that.
Yeah. In terms of technical achievement, also, like there are...
It's very cool.
It's very cool, the way that they're able to recreate. And also, something that I noticed is, like, I don't think of myself as being overly familiar with the iconography of Marilyn Monroe. Like, it's not like we're one of those people that have hallways full of, like, Marilyn Monroe posters.
You do have a Marilyn Monroe poster, though.
Do we?
You do.
I do?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
It's in the room over there. She's like wearing like a tutu or something. I'm not gonna I'll fucking find it.
You better, because I am not at all remotely familiar with my alleged Marilyn Monroe poster. Anyway,
all the pieces fit now. This is why, yeah. Okay.
I don't think of myself as being particularly steeped in Marilyn Monroe stuff, but so many of the shots in this movie I knew instantly. Yes. Right? Like they're just absolutely part of our cultural language in a way that sort of surprises me all of these years later. And I wonder, like, that obviously can't maintain forever, but this is the sort of movie that helps reseal it into the cultural imagination, maybe for another generation.
All right.
It's this photo shoot. I don't know which photo we have, but this...
I don't have that poster anywhere.
We do. It's in there. If you want to clean out the basement during your days that you don't have a job. I certainly
don't. Maybe you got it from like Allie or something when you lived with her.
So what happened was...
accuse me of having a Marilyn Monroe poster.
I said I don't want this,
and
you said I want to keep that. That's Marilyn Monroe in a sexy dress. I want to keep it. It's one of these.
All right. I mean, sure. I've never owned a Marilyn Monroe poster, though.
You do.
All right. Incest Dragons. One quick take on Incest Dragons is that this should have been the premiere episode of the Incest Dragons show. We did not need the whole previous 7 episodes. This was a tremendous hour and 15 minutes of television, and I think, like, I don't know because I watched the first 7 goddamn hours, but I think that we had you have enough sort of feeling and context for everything that's going on if you just come in here. We will prove that in the long run, the first 7 hours of this television show, with the exception of the performance of King Viserys, which was worth it, right? Like, that guy was good, and he was an entertaining guy. But, like, we could have not had the entire first 7 hours and just started here with episode 8.
As someone who forces people to watch the first season and a half of Buffy, I disagree with you.
Right. And it's kind of weird for you to say that because you already know how everything came to. Wouldn't it be weird, jarring? Like, there's a lot of tension during that episode, and I do agree was great. None of it would really be there if you didn't know everything that led up to that episode. Maybe you didn't need all the 7 episodes previously that came before it, rather, but you couldn't start here. Like, this basically seems like the shit is now about to hit the fan. I don't watch the next episode, but the old school Game of Thrones seasons, episode 9 is usually when things happen. And the next episode is the 9th episode.
Bloodbath.
And everything's setting up towards like, oh, what did this old man about to die say? By the way, at the beginning when I saw the old geezer, the king, who, the actor did a great job, I was like, if this guy survives this episode, I'm out. There's no way. Like, his condition was such...
No, he's still alive. He's still alive, actually.
No eye on one side. Like, I was like, there's no way he can survive. But no, it was fun.
He's not quite dead.
Yeah.
No, it's a very, very good episode of television. And absolutely, I was on the money when I said that we've picked our sides here. Because on the one hand, we have Rhaenyra and Daemon, and yeah, sure, Daemon's a bit of a loose cannon. Will sort of behead a dude at a moment's notice.
Or kill
you never
his
know what's gonna
wife
happen.
just out of expedience. Like, he's not a good person.
No, yeah, like I said, loose cannon. But,
Loose cannon.
but Rhaenyra has managed to raise good kids.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we have good kids, and we have someone who seems to have the realm's interests at heart, right? Expresses an interest for the realm, and also has raised good kids, and seems to be like relatively happy in her current station in life.
Yeah,
and on the other hand,
married to her uncle, but yeah, sure.
Whatever.
Right. On the other hand, we have Alicent, who has raised absolute sadistic psychopaths.
Rapist and a sociopath, right? Basically, you have...
Right.
That guy didn't raise those kids.
Alicent, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Alicent raised her children.
Okay. Yeah.
She's their mother.
Yeah.
And those are sadists and psychopaths, and very bad news for everyone who, like, you look at them and you're like, oh, that guy's definitely going to be the king. You know how I can tell? Because he's an awful fucking monster.
Right.
And that's what we get when we get kings in shows like this. We get awful fucking monsters. So her 2 shitheads are awful, and fucking Otto Hightower doesn't care. He just wants power.
Whatever it
and
takes.
all he cares about is getting his grandson in power. And Alicent then we get there's one downside to this episode. It's the stupid television trope of the confused communication that happens at the end of the episode.
The misunderstanding.
Which is completely unnecessary, by the way, right? Because Alicent has already made her bed. We know what side she's on. We do not need to give her a dramatic irony for the audience, misunderstood confusion about destiny or about the king's final wishes or something like that.
Right.
It was completely unnecessary. I don't know why they did it, except to try to inject some bullshit righteousness into her side of the story.
Well, so I don't know obviously what happens next, but from what I gather, they're trying to have Alicent be not motivated by evil. She needs justification in her own head. So it seemed like she kind of glommed onto a very drugged up king. I mean, if you look at the balance of the information, 20 years of my daughter is going to be the heir apparent, and I'm going to will my way to the throne room to make sure that my daughter's interests are preserved. If you take all of that and the dinner feast where she kind of came to terms with Rhaenyra being queen, all of that versus...
Well, it's what she said anyway. Right. I think that she just said that in that moment with the understanding that Viserys wasn't about to fucking keel over and that she still had an opportunity once Rhaenyra leaves King's Landing to keep her hooks in power. I don't think that she was actually handing over the crown in that moment when she said that someday you'll make a good queen. Right,
but from my understanding is I don't think that this was one of those the tropes that you described, miscommunication and it leads to conflicting theories of things. To me, it seems like there was a couple episodes where the king called Allison by his first wife's name, Emma. So basically, there's kind of sitting the ground like this person's out of it sometimes, so don't believe whatever
but
he said.
she's now going to rely on this miscommunication, this misunderstanding about what he said.
No, but what I'm saying is like she knows that what he meant wasn't about her idiot kid, his rapist son, but she's gonna use it.
You think that she knows?
She know because the way she reacted, like she was like, oh, but she'll use this flimsy pretext to champion her cause, right? But she doesn't believe that there was a...
Okay, so then if that's the case, if what you're saying is right, that she's going to use this as a pretext that she knows in her heart is bogus,
right,
then we've further cemented her as the bad guy here. And that what we have here is a good guys versus bad...
There are no good guys. But isn't that clear? There are no good people. I mean, the Rhaenyra's people are not good. You can make the case that they're better than, but they're not good.
Right, but I think that what we have is we have the little white brunette boys who are good but wrong, and then we have the other side, which is bad but right, and that's sort of that they have the more just legal claim to the throne, but they have no moral authority.
Right. Also,
no moral claim to it.
I don't know. Maybe they're just adhering to how it was in the books, but like the rapist oldest, the Aegon. First of all, too many Aegons, but okay. The rapist Aegon, he seems to have no interest in being the king. Like even when the old geezer showed up and it was like, no, it's going through my daughter. He had like that smile on his face, like, oh, thank God.
Right. Classic like banality of evil sort of situation, as opposed to his younger brother, who by the way looks 10 years older than him, Aemond, who's got like the real sadistic.
Yeah, he's like that.
Who was that shithead that Lori liked so much in Thrones?
Renly Baratheon?
No, the shithead, the torturous
maniac. Ramsay.
Ramsay, yeah. But I mean, a more...
He smiles.
Right.
Yeah, he does. I like people in these shows that smile. It's refreshing. They're evil. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
At least they're smiling.
Right. I mean,
Oh, and Euron. That was the other one.
The one-eyed guy, the patch guy.
Aemond.
First of all, those younger kids, what are you doing laughing at the pig callback thing? Like, this guy is clearly stronger and older than you. He'll kill you with relative ease, and you're still taking a dig at him over the joke you played on him?
You're not taking a dig. It's just a funny thing. And also, that was Aegon's joke anyway. It's not his fault.
Look at the guy's eye. He is a sociopath. He's going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what his future holds, but he looks like he's going to kill everybody, and no one will stop him. He kind of reminds me of this Damon guy that you overlook all this.
Oh, yeah. Well, they shared a look of like mutual respect.
They're like, oh, yeah, we're the same.
It's like, you're an asshole, too.
Are we played by the same actor? No? Oh, okay.
Damon's like, you're probably going to try to fuck my wife, aren't you, guy? She'd probably be into it, too. This fucking family. Anyway, it was a good episode. Again, I think that we could have done without all of the fucking prologue and just started here, and it would have been fine.
But we're here now.
Disagree.
Hopefully there'll be a nice number of people dead, because I can't remember all their names. Rhaenyra's got 3 more kids. There's too many kids.
They're all named Aegon. That's how you know.
I really feel like this is one of the first episodes that they wrote, and then they were like, okay, we got to go back and fill everybody in.
Yeah.
It just feels like a pilot episode to me. It feels like so much happens, because it's very, very similar to what ends up being the pilot, which is like, we have a question of succession, and we're going to have this big conversation about the succession. And this particular succession issue very much rides right into the very next succession issue, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We'll keep watching. It's fine. It's good. You got anything else for us tonight, Abe?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. We will talk to you next time.
Later.
Fucking Corey put on Twitter about this show. I thought we had a pretty good episode last week. And
what did he say?
Corey said, in this week's episode of Cast Iron Brains, the host skips over all the wacky articles his audience comes to this podcast to hear him talk about, to instead beat a dead horse about milquetoast topics, which are at the top of the overly discussed culture wars. How dare you, Corey?
That is what you did.
I want to, in the classic sense of, or in the way that NPR assholes give context to things by talking about other things that this person has said in the past.
Yeah.
Like Trump says some absurd thing, and they're like, but we need to give some more context to this. So I want to give some more context to what Corey said. His previous tweet on his timeline, October 7th, the greatest run to the World Series in Mets history begins today. Hashtag Let's Go Mets.
So is he just cranky?
So, not sure that he's a reliable source
for
understanding the world out there.
There are Mets fans out there.
I would like to know what Corey thinks, or what Corey thinks, but not like an opinion, but like a guess as to those stupid towels that say "These Mets." Like, what is that?
I'm sure that there's an explanation, and if
Yeah.
we lived in the tri-state area,
That's what I'm saying.
It
I
would be
want to
abundantly
know.
clear.
I want to know from Corey on Twitter what that's about.
Lori thought it was a like D's nuts reference, as though they'd be printing out.
I was trying to make it make sense in my
50,000
head.
dish towels at a time for waving about the head with great enthusiasm, as a reference to a D's nuts joke, which would be great.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think you can give that out to the first 15,000 kids who
They
show
can
up
do
for a
whatever they
baseball
want.
game.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's either that or my other guess would be it's a hedge. Either way, you can make that. It's like when they suck, these Mets. And
That's
then
what
when
it
they do
just sounds more
I
like
think
they
it's,
suck.
It's one of those like these Mets. Like it's very sincere. Like we
right.
love these
when
guys.
they win. But if
Right.
they shit the bed, you can still bring out the stupid thing. But yeah, I think the initial intent is that.
Anyway, eat shit, Corey. It was a good episode last week. I'm not going to get on here and scream about culture war stuff. We're just not going to get on here a lot of the time. It's just how it's going to be.
By the way, did he have access to your mini tabs? How does he know what was done away with?
Yeah, further, like, I didn't realize that our brand was just, like, wacky articles. I had no idea.
I didn't know that was a brand. Yeah, that's interesting.
I did not know that's what people came to us for.